Would I be the a-hole for not telling my siblings about their true paternity and taking everything in my dad's will? Am I the a-hole for sending my boyfriend half of the bill for our dog's cremation? Am I the a-hole? My aunt refused to let me see my grandma because of my service dog. Would I be the a-hole for not telling my siblings about their true paternity and taking everything in my dad's will? I, 38, have been NC with my dad and two younger siblings for many years. My dad always treated me like crap because he was convinced that my mom cheated on him, because she did, a lot, and trapped him into a shitty marriage, and that I was not biologically his. For my 13th birthday, my dad bought me a paternity test, and even though the test results came back that I am indeed his, he accused me, or my mother, of sleeping with the test guy. LOL. I have also done an ancestry DNA test and also matched with all his relatives, so I'm pretty sure that unfortunately he is my bio dad. I have known for a long time that my younger sister was not my dad's. When I did my ancestry DNA test, my sister wanted to get one too. My mom freaked out, admitted her indiscretion, and begged me to convince my sister that it was a waste of money and that she could just have a copy of my results. I did, because I thought I was protecting her and she was going through a rough time at that time. I recently got a notification about a ancestry DNA match. I look it up and it looks like my brother's ex-wife got one of the kits for both of my brother's kids. And lo and behold, my brother's kids only seem to share relatives from my mom's side. FYI, my profile uses a screen name so she would not have recognized who I was. My brother and sister have been really shitty to me for years. Comments about how I owed their dad for him putting a roof over my head as a child. And how dare I accept items from their grandmother's estate, etc. I put up with it for years because they are younger and honestly not that bright. I thought that they'd come around eventually. My dad sure in a drunken fight with my mother to give me a copy of his will. Still have it. So that I knew that he had put a stipulation in there about his estate being divided amongst his biological children. I know that he has not changed his will since because his mental capacity has changed. TMI. Will I be the a-hole if I did not tell my siblings and just let this play out at the will reading, take everything, and kick them out of the family home? I would also be setting up funds for my nephew since my loser brother doesn't pay child support. My husband thinks that this is stooping to their level, as they both rely on his estate currently for survival. So this will ruin them. They have no education or way to support themselves currently. But I kinda want to stoop.
Yes, legal advice is essential on this one. Even if he's not their biological father, many jurisdictions would still consider him as being legally their father, or would assume he's their biological father. They're probably not going to just go along with getting a DNA test. Even if they were proven not to be his biological children, he has nonetheless raised them, and many have legislation on provisions for children in wills. In some countries, it's almost impossible to write your kids out of a will, as under legislation they'd have a very strong argument their father intended to provide for them. This sounds like an utter cluster waiting to happen. Just so you're aware, depending on the laws where you or your siblings could challenge your dad's will and drag this through the courts for decades. Can you elaborate on why you think your half-siblings deserve to have the rug pulled from under them like this? From what I can see, they haven't been particularly nice to you or good people in general, but I can't see any behavior that would warrant you doing anything that would ruin them. I mean, I get wanting to give someone a taste of their own medicine, but what you're describing is beyond the pale. It's responding to a potato gun with a portable howitzer. Judgment reserved. Honestly though, it seems as if a lot of this is kind of out of your hands. I mean, your dad's will is what it is, you and your siblings' respective pedigrees are what they are. NTA. It's not your will, it's your dad's will. Your siblings treat you like crap. If you were close with them, it might ruin your relationship if you didn't warn them, but they ruined that relationship themselves. Not only that, if the siblings want to put such an emphasis on being illegitimate and telling you not to accept gifts because of it, then they should have no problem getting nothing from your father. But I have a big caveat for the practical implications of this. Your siblings don't know they're illegitimate, right? You will not get all of your father's estate at this point unless you do something, contact a lawyer. Children are generally presumed to be legitimate. The executor won't require DNA tests before dividing the assets, and even if you contact the executor, they may not do anything. If it is not out there that your siblings are not your father's legitimate kids, they will likely be treated as his biological children and get part of his estate. You would then have to go to court to contest the will and show evidence that the siblings are not your dad's bio kids. That takes time and money, and the court could just decide to ignore that stipulation, since they were treated by your father as bio kids. If you are the executor of the will, this will not be a problem. If not, you may want them to know about their illegitimate status now with proof, so that it goes smoothly later. You wouldn't have to tell them about your dad's will for this, and I wouldn't, just that they aren't his kids. Firstly, how cruel is your family? See, just to be clear, your mom lets you be treated like the outcast when she knows you are your dad's child, right? And she doubts your sister's paternity so much that she begs you to stop her doing a DNA test, and all the whole she still allows you to be treated badly. Honestly, do it. Stoop till your back hurts and let this run its course. Then, when the truth finally comes out, you take the house, the money and whatever else you're entitled to and kick everyone out of your house and your life. Permanently, and yes, I am including your mother in this exiled group as well. She allowed her behavior to directly impact your life in a massively negative way for years and did nothing to help. So you and they deserve everything that's coming to you all. Relish in the fact that they have to watch you get everything in the will and not be able to do a damn thing about it. They have treated you so badly for so long that I see you inheriting everything as compensation for all the abuse you have suffered. I mean, come on, who in their right mind accuses a 13-year child of sleeping with the person administering the DNA test? Batshit crazy people, that's who. You would be to yourself if you spoke up now. Keep quiet, grab a bowl of popcorn, sit back and enjoy the show. Because you know, the second the truth is uncovered you will suddenly become family to these people and be expected to share everything with them. Would they share with you? If the answer is no, which we all know it would be, then take your inheritance and cut these leeches off. If necessary, go full scorched earth with them. Whatever it takes to keep them far, far away from you, your family and that nice inheritance coming your way. Once they realize it is their own and your father's actions that have caused this, the fallout should be pretty good to watch. Just to be clear, OP is NTA. Go get your inheritance and
Am I the a-hole for sending my boyfriend half of the bill for our dog's cremation? My boyfriend, male 36, and I, female 32, have been together for 9 years. I know it's a long time, but he doesn't want marriage, saying it's meaningless and same as getting your driver's license where we live nowadays, and that it's lost its true meaning. Anyway, we decided to get a dog 3 years ago. Since we don't share finances, then we agreed to pay 50-50 for everything our dog needed. He said okay, and things remained the way till recently when our dog fell sick. I found myself paying the vet bill alone for the duration of 4 months. I asked my boyfriend to help out and pay 50 of the expenses, but he kept making excuses to pay for things they weren't necessary. Our dog unfortunately passed away, which was devastating. My boyfriend cried and went radio silent for 1 day, then went back to normal. But my grief was just starting. I was mad at the fact he didn't help with the treatment, but I still asked if he agreed to get our dog cremated and he said yes and go for it. I asked him to pay half, telling him how much it cost, and he looked at me stunned and said, "I'm not the one getting cremated. Why the F should I be expected to pay for it?" I said, "Because it's our dog." He said he no longer is since he's dead, which got me pissed. I said I'll go with burial then, but he objected and said I shouldn't back out of cremation just to spite him, and insisted I go ahead and do the right thing for our beloved dog. I said alright then, and ended up paying for only half of cremation bill, then later sent him half of the bill through the vet, and he was so mad when he saw it. He said he couldn't believe how stubborn I was to pull that stunt because legally he has to pay now. We had an argument and he said I should have just paid for the entire thing instead of acting petty to prove a point. He accused me of not loving our dog enough to handle the bill. Am I the a-hole?
Seriously, almost 6 months ago, I lost my old man Chihuahua. He was 15 years old. It was the day before our 15th anniversary together. My husband took care of everything so that I didn't have to. I went with him for the end, but the pickup, the payments, etc. That was all him. Because I couldn't do it. Your boyfriend. He spent the last few years of your dog's life basically not holding up his end of the deal and not caring about the dog. He was able to brush off his grief quickly, but he didn't support you when you couldn't. He placed money over your feelings and his own commitments. Because he is cheap at best, but selfish and a crappy partner at worst. Your partner is supposed to be your rudder when you're adrift. He's supposed to be your tether when you need someone to hold on so that you aren't lost. He's supposed to lift you up when you need a boost. He has failed you in every way about this particular issue. I'm not sure what the rest of your relationship looks like, but this in and of itself tells you that he's not going to be there for you in sickness or for worse. It's good that you've not made marriage vows, because he's already fucked them up. NTA. Were you the one being cremated? Who TF says that? And the fact that he was stunned. I'm stunned at the never-ending list of things he said and did throughout this post. I'm sorry your dog died. He said he'd pay half of all expenses, and so now, after not doing it for 4 months, he is legally forced to do what he said he'd do. He should be more upset that he was legally forced because as a grown man, he decided to shove all the responsibility of your beloved pet, family members, on you. He sounds insufferable, especially in this time of grief. Edit. Missed a word. NTA, and as many people have said, this behavior is very concerning. He is old enough to realize that dogs aren't free and need reasonable care, so there was no need to balk on paying sick bills. And if he felt differently, he should have made it clear that he didn't want the dog and all responsibility fell on you. To refuse to pay afterwards and stick you with a bill is not only wrong, it could be illegal if the dog was considered shared property, and I'm sorry to use those words, because pets are family, not property. Please take a long hard look at the relationship. Has this behavior always been there? Has it gotten worse with time? What will this mean for your future, especially if you become ill? It's hard to consider breaking up after 9 years, but look at the bigger picture before making any decisions. NTA condolences on the loss of your beloved dog. I wish you comfort as you work your way through your grief. Please take some quiet time and take a long, hard, honest look at the relationship you have with this man. You may love him, but do you truly like him? If you were simply acquaintances with him and he displayed these opinions and behaviors, would you continue to be around him or would you avoid him? The way the relationship is directed seems clearly one way his. Do your feelings opinions ever matter to him or have you just been worn down over 9 years to believing his? You deserve happiness, be seen and heard, and to know your partner appreciates you and your feelings.
Am I the a-hole? My aunt refused to let me see my grandma because of my service dog. I, 25 female, have had various health issues my entire life. The biggest problems being reactive hypoglycemia and seizures. My seizures aren't medication controlled and they get worse when my sugar gets low or I stay stressed. I have a service dog. She's able to alert to lows and before a seizure so I can lay down somewhere safe instead of falling on my face. A few months ago, my aunt told me that my grandma was in late-stage heart failure and she was starting to experience symptoms of dementia. I was heartbroken. My aunt asked if I wanted to visit and I tearfully said yes. I told her I didn't have money for any travel or board, which is true. I'm below the poverty line. And she offered to pay for the flight and for me to stay at her and my grandmother's house. I thanked her. I cried. I was kind of a mess. My service dog saw that I was upset and came over to lay her head in my lap for pats. It isn't a task, but it always helps me calm down. My aunt paused, then said, "But you have to leave your pet at home." I was confused. I told her there was no way I would bring my cat on a plane. He's like 16. She sighed really hard and said, "No, the dog. I don't want her at my house. She'll upset the cats." I argued that my SD is trained. And a part of that training is to ignore other animals unless I give her the cue that she can say hi. Aunt didn't care. You'll have to leave the dog behind or I won't help you get here. I was in tears again, trying to explain that I can't leave my disabilities at home, and that means I can't leave behind the lifeline that helps me live with them. She told me to make a decision and hung up. I've been denied from public places before. Not every business owner understands or cares about the ADA laws. Obviously, it's different when the person doing it is related to you. Auntie, I kept dangling this opportunity over my head for weeks. I kept begging her to let me come with my SD because it's unsafe for me to go without the dog. Aunt goes radio silent. Days pass. She calls me one morning and tells me that my grandma is hours from death. I'm immediately freaking out again. I beg to calm down and Aunt, strangely giddy, asks, "Without the dog, right?" I told her she was being hateful. I told her that I thought she of all people would understand. And the fact that she doesn't is tearing me up. She told me that it's sad that a dog is more important than family. A few days passed and she texts me, forwarded, she didn't even have the decency to copy and paste it, to say that my grandma has passed away and they'll have a celebration of life at their house later in the month. She specified that no one is to bring any pets. She later texted me individually to make sure I'm leaving that dog at home. I snapped, told her to go fuck herself, that I'd stay home, that at least my pet doesn't treat me like shit, that I expected better from family. I hung up on her. Am I the a-hole?
I think the aunt is a sadistica who did this maliciously. She probably wanted to feel and tell people she is a saint for offering to pay and shelter. No, that op wouldn't be able to. But I disagree with the notion that people have a right to bring service dogs into people's personal residence willy-nilly. Yeah, it would be odd to deny without good reason. But I have cats, they live here, this is their home. They have more right to it than guests, human or not. Having a bigger dog is a no-go in my home, since the cats get scared and won't come out. For an hour, sure, they can be in the bedroom. But not to shelter. Small dog seems to work at some extent, haven't really had one that stayed for a longer time. But the cats doesn't seem to be as scared, one of them seems rather fascinated. So, I understand the take that says the aunt may have had legitimate reasons for excluding the dog from her home, which, let's be real, also means excluding op, full stop, but you really can't end the analysis there when there is so much about aunt's behavior that shows that she was gleefully wielding the circumstances to try to assert control over OP. Most generous interpretation. Let's say aunt has medically fragile cats for whom the stress of a dog sent in the home could trigger a serious crisis. Cats being cats, it's totally plausible. But then the nah scenario is, aunt says unfortunately, I really can't host your service dog. Is it possible for you to be here without him? And OP says no, I'm afraid not, and aunt says I understand. I'm so sorry I can't help you. End of conversation. But instead, we've got arguing, pressuring, taunting, intentionally dismissive repeated references to OP's service dog as a pet, calling OP up over and over to dangle the choice that is really no choice at all under her nose and make her feel the shittiness of the whole situation over and over again. That is not someone who sincerely wants to help, but feels that her hands are tied by her own animal's needs. It's a sadistic control freak. NTA. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, OP. Your aunt is framing the situation as if it's just about you putting your pet above seeing your grandmother, when in reality, she is demanding that you risk your health, potentially your life, to be able to say goodbye to your grandmother. What an incredibly cruel and completely heartless thing for her to do, asking her own niece to take such a risk, and with no sort of compromise. She's punishing you for being disabled by denying access to see your dying grandmother, which is incredibly ableist. If there any other family for you to reach out to and explain the situation. Even if they can't make her change her decision, her actions towards you should be known to the family, even if just to shame her. Some may think it petty, but it is very much deserved. Honestly, good on you for telling her off. She deserves nothing less than to feel bad.